to starve of food, electricity, water 2.2 million people. That is a war crime under the 4th Geneva Convention.
This was Irish politician Richard Boyd Barrett alleging that Israel is committing war crimes against the people of Gaza as a response to the Irish government's stance on the current Israel Hamas conflict. What did he mean when he talked about these war crimes? What war crimes laws apply to the Israel-Palestinian conflict? Let's have a look. Let's start with what laws govern the conflict. Internationally accepted rules of armed conflict emerged out of the 1949 Geneva Conventions. A series of treaties governs the treatment of civilians, soldiers and prisoners of war in a system collectively known as the law of armed conflict or international humanitarian law. Now, this law applies to government forces and organized armed groups, including Hamas militants. So, if alleged Palestinian perpetrators of atrocities in Israel and all alleged perpetrators of crimes on the occupied Palestinian territories are not brought to justice at home, they will be tried at the International Criminal Court (ICC) in The Hague. Why turn to the ICC? The ICC's founding Rome Statute gives it legal authority to investigate alleged crimes on the territory of its members or by their nationals when domestic authorities are unwilling or unable to do so. On Tuesday, the Office of the Prosecutor of the ICC confirmed that its mandate applies to potential crimes committed in the current conflict. What is a war crime? Now, coming to what a war crime is, in 1998, the International Criminal Court offered an extensive definition of a war crime, which essentially requires parties to a conflict to differentiate between civilian and military targets. These include willful killing, taking hostages, and attacks on various civilian targets such as religious, educational, artistic, scientific, and charitable buildings, as well as historic monuments and hospitals. War crimes also include directing attacks against a civilian population, not taking direct part in hostilities, and causing death or injury to them. The statute also prohibits using starvation of civilians as a method of warfare by depriving them of objects indispensable to their survival. Now, what is ICC's role in this? It has jurisdiction over war crimes, crimes against humanity and genocide in its 123 member states or committed by its nationals. However, many of the world's major powers are not members, including China, the US, Russia, India and Egypt. Meanwhile, the ICC recognizes Palestine as a member state, while Israel rejects the court's jurisdiction and does not formally engage with it. The ICC has had an ongoing investigation into allegations of war crimes and crimes against humanity committed in the occupied Palestinian territories since 2021. Prosecutors said in 2021 there was a reasonable basis to believe that violations had been committed on all sides, including by Israeli troops, Hamas militants, and other armed Palestinian groups. So what act violates war crime laws? A siege can be considered a war crime if it targets civilians rather than a legitimate means to undermine Hamas's military capabilities or if found to be disproportionate. Attacks on military objectives have to be proportional under international law, which means they must not lead to excessive loss of civilian life or damage to civilian objects. Israel drew criticism from UN officials and human rights groups by announcing a tightened blockade to prevent food and fuel from reaching the Gaza Strip, home to 2.3 million people. The taking of hostages, murder and torture are explicitly banned under the Geneva Conventions, which means the killings of Hamas militants of hundreds of revelers at a dance rave puts an obvious focus on a war crime case. However, Israel's response could also be subject to a war crimes investigation. That's all in this explained episode. For more, press the bell icon and get all the updates on the Israel Hamas war.